What's going on, guys? Matt Marinoff, Real Estate Recovery Group. Sorry for the late start. I know it's only a couple minutes, but if it's underneath 5 and if you've ever been in transit, you know that you're still early. In any event, my guest today is Teddy Slack. I'm really excited. Simple Tanks is because this gentleman, he's a young guy. He understands the needs. He's a true professional in and out. I've been following him now for about 2 years, and I have to tell you, I haven't heard one bad thing about him. Only good things. He's got a kind heart. He really wants to help others. He's truly making a difference for people that are in a horrible situation where maybe they have an abandoned tank that they didn't know about. And or the cleanup scenarios. He was just telling me about a scenario where the buyer fell out, and a couple of things that he's working on and he's helping people with for them to succeed to get rid of a property. If they have a property, and I guess if they have to do something with it and they don't have all the money up front, as far as working on a payment plan, he's okay with that too. So I don't know if this guy's a real life Robin Hood or not, but for real, he's a family man. He loves to help others. His full bio, by the way, is in this lead up to the actual live. So you can always go back and watch that. But Teddy, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you having me on, dude. It's awesome. Thanks.
Absolutely. So you're definitely a leader in the industry. I love some of the videos that you're doing. I see some of the marketing that you do for yourself. So you definitely tell you're not shy in front of the camera. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I try, man. I try. It's it's definitely it's good to get the story out there, and it's been huge. I mean, the video has been really big for our company in the last couple of months, for sure.
Marketing itself, obviously, in this day and age, if you have a leg up over somebody else, maybe they're not on the internet. Sometimes you try to Google somebody's company, nothing really comes up, maybe a home address or phone number. You really have to put yourself out there. So social media has been a big push for me, for at least the last 5 years since I started with my, rollout of the nationwide and trying to help people on a national level. So there are a couple of questions I want to ask you. These questions are actually unique to conversations that you and I have had. People are going to want to contact you directly. Is it okay if I put your cell phone number up on the screen so people can reach out?
Yeah, absolutely, man. They could call or text is usually better. I mean, you throw me a text, I'll be able to get back to you at some point throughout the day for sure.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this up now so people have it on the bottom of the ticker to the screen. It's Teddy Slack. You can actually reach out to Teddy. You could text him or you could call him. He's got a very unique cell phone number. I'm sure anybody would want to buy this. It's 908-510-0000. It's 908-510-0000. Teddy, there's a couple of things I want to get into, but why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself, a little bit behind the scenes, maybe things that people don't know about you?
Sure. So I've been in the environmental industry my whole life. I grew up in this business. I'm actually a third generation environmental business. Teddy Slack the fourth, actually. So there's 4 of us running around. My grandfather used to install oil tanks. He's from Union. He used to put them in the ground back in the day, and now I'm pulling them out. So I've been around this my whole life. I've been a serial entrepreneur. I've dabbled in other industries. I've started other companies, but I've always come back to this business. And yeah, man, it's in my blood, really. So I have a lot of unique services that I offer that don't exist in the industry, that are very unique, really, for investors. Because I was an investor myself at one point. I flipped 26 houses. So I got involved, starting out buying contaminated property. And then just one thing led to the next. I did a bunch of rehabs. So, I have a lot of investor friendly services that we offer.
That's great. That's important. So let me get into some of the questions that I have, and some they're a little bit unique. Because obviously your services are a little bit different than other tank services that are out there. Doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It could be good. That's what makes you different in life, being unique.
Absolutely.
What are some of the unique services that your company offers to investors particularly?
So I'll give you a couple examples. So if you're going to look at a house that has an underground oil tank as an investor, you're going to want to do your due diligence to make sure that tank's not leaking, because pulling the tank it's only like $1,500. That's not a big deal at all. It's if it's leaking, the question is, as a buyer, what's this going to cost me? Because most investors are buying houses from banks, or they're buying it from, short sales, or they're getting it from a seller who doesn't have the funds. So it's really going to fall on the investor, the buyer, to really deal with that cleanup. And most investors, they run from these deals because they don't, in the industry, typically how it works is you call companies like myself and they're telling you, well, it's going to be 8 to 10 grand to do a remediation, but that's just an open-ended guess. I've had several projects that start out at 8 or 10 grand and they end up at 50 or 60,000. So as an investor, you can't buy a property with an open-ended contract. So we have a service that we could come out, even if the tank is still in the ground, we'll actually probe around that tank with a geoprobe and we'll chase the contamination. Because the most important thing to know when you have a leaking oil tank is how far the contamination traveled. Which direction did it go in? How deep it is? Is groundwater impacted? Is it under any structures? Is it off-site? Is there any utilities involved? All these things we're going to find out in our investigation, and then we're going to be able to provide you with a fixed price. So now you can buy that house knowing that once you close, that number is not going to fluctuate. So hypothetically, it's a $15,000 quote. You go negotiate with the seller, you work it into the deal, and you know that after you close, you're going to hire us, and that's what you're going to pay, not a penny more. Even if we screw up the investigation, let's say my guy doesn't do the proper investigation, and I underquote it, and it cost me $20,000, I'm still only going to invoice you for $15,000. There's nothing like that in the industry. There's one other company that markets a flat rate remediation service, but if you really dive into their contract, it only includes up to 20 tons of soil. So if it's more than 20 tons, it's on you. If there's groundwater impacted, it's on you. Like all these things they don't tell you. They're real slick on how they market. And I've had clients call me, oh, I got another quote. It's a flat rate at 8,900. I'm like, oh, really? Did they investigate to see how deep the contamination? No. They just gave me a quote over the phone. It's physically impossible to give a flat rate or a fixed price on a cleanup without investigating it. It's like, giving a full gut renovation quote on a house without going to see at it, go look at it. You know what I mean? Like it's impossible. You can't do that. You have to look at it. You got to measure, you know what I mean? And it's the same thing with us. Like we have to investigate it. So we have a service. It's $600. So it's super affordable for a buyer. It's like a home inspection cost. You come in, we probe it, and I'll tell you to the penny exactly what it's going to cost. And some of these projects, dude, are six figures. I mean, I have clients that I'll go in there and I'll tell them. I mean, I just had one guy. I was like, bro, you need to knock the house down. That's the only way it's going to make sense because this is going to cost you like $180,000 to remediate it. But if you knock the house down, I could do for 50. And the house was a piece of garbage anyway. So like it made more sense. But like if he didn't do that, he would have bought that house, bro. He was about to close on it. He backed out of the deal. He actually was getting it from the sheriff's sale. He had a deposit. I told him, like, dude, go get your deposit, bro, if you can, because this is no good, man. It was in the street. It was bad. So really? That happens. Yeah, it happens a lot.
What happens in a situation like that? What do they call? Is it an Oprah report? What is the report that you guys tag the property with?
So what happens is when you get a leaking tank, you get a case number assigned, but that's it. There's no other information that you'll find. So you do an Oprah request to the DEP. On a residential site, you're not going to have any information because nothing will be submitted to the DEP until the project is finished. So unless you do this type of investigation to delineate the soils and figure out how bad it is, you're not going to be able to find info. It's not like a commercial site. A commercial site, you could be having a cleanup done over a couple-year period. Throughout that time, you're submitting documentation to the DEP. You might be able to find with an Oprah request information on the work that was previously done. In residential, it doesn't work like that. There's just no information at the DEP until the project's completed. That's how it works.
That's pretty amazing. This is a topic that comes up. I can't even remember how many times. Every time I get involved in a short sale, I hear that there's something revolving a tank. What about tank insurance? What's your take on that? And how does tank insurance really work?
So there's only two companies in the state of New Jersey that offer tank insurance. So here's the thing. Tank insurance, if you have an active heating oil tank, okay? So we're talking about active heating oil tank. It's currently being used at the home. There's currently fuel being delivered to it. You can go to your fuel dealer and you could buy tank insurance, okay? The thing that really it doesn't work well is because if you're a buyer, if you're an investor especially, I mean, you can't convert to gas. So if you want to renovate that house and convert to gas, you can't. If there's a claim, they make you stick with oil for 12 months. That's number one.
Really?
Yeah. So you have to, before you even take the tank out, they make you put a new tank in. So you have to install a new tank regardless. So it's like, as an investor, it's usually not the best case, I mean, obviously if there's no gas in the street, your only option is oil.
That's with tank insurance.
Correct. This is through the fuel, your fuel dealer. So a couple things. You got to buy it through the fuel dealer. You have to buy the oil through the fuel dealer. So if he raises the prices, you can't shop around for oil. you got to buy through that guy. So you're stuck no matter what his price turns out to be, right? So you're stuck with that. You can't convert to gas if you want to. There's a certain amount of time you have to wait in order to, if you buy the house, in order for you to do anything. There's all these little things that they have, or they deny claims all the time. I have clients that call me and they're like, dude, I've been paying in for 10 years. I've been paying $700 a year. So they paid $7,000 to this policy and they have no coverage because they convert to gas or whatever, So it's really not a great coverage. We actually have a competitive coverage called Simple Guard, where the other thing too about this other program, it only covers for soil. They don't tell you this. So if you have contamination and it's in the groundwater, or if it's going off-site on a neighboring property, you are responsible for that. They're not going to cover that. They're only going to cover for your own property. So if it's in the groundwater or off-site, it's on you. Which is not good because a lot of these jobs, there is groundwater contamination, right? So we have a program where we will come out, we'll probe around your tank, same process as before. If it's clean, we offer you a coverage up to $150,000. The other product is 100. We cover for groundwater and first party. So it's full coverage. It's $59 a month. So it's monthly. And you could convert to gas anytime you want. It'll switch over to the new buyer.
Why would somebody not want that?
Well, exactly. I mean, if you have an active tank, it's, honestly, I mean, it's the cheapest way. So if you're selling a property and you have an active tank, if you're going to pull that tank and convert to oil, you're going to spend a couple of grand. It's going to be $4,000 or $5,000. So for this, you can spend.
What's the name of the insurance?
It's called Simple Guard. Our program is called Simple Guard. It's on our website at simpletankservices.com. What's that?
This is yours? You do this?
This is ours, yeah. It's us and one other guy in the whole state that even offers any type of warranty or insurance like this. Okay. That's one product we have. That's for active heating oil tanks. Now, a lot of investors, a lot of guys that you're dealing with, they're not really buying houses with the intention of keeping an active tank, right? They want to convert to gas, or a lot of times they're buying a house that was previously filled or it's not active. So we have a policy that we come in, again, same thing. We're going to probe it. If I tell you it's clean, we offer a 6-month guarantee. It's a one-time payment of $1,400. But what it does is as long as you pull that tank with our company within 6 months, if there's any contamination at all, we're going to clean it up for free. It doesn't matter if it's $100,000, $200,000. There's no ceiling on it. Groundwater, doesn't matter if it's a complete mess. We're cleaning it up and guaranteeing a no further action letter at no additional cost. It's only $1,400. That is really more geared for investors.
That's crazy. And what a homeowners take on when they purchase a property? Like, does anybody say, hey, look, reach out to Teddy because the house has a tank. Obviously, you guys did your tank and everything else. You did your due diligence. You might want to look into some of the programs that are available, only because what happens if 5 years from now there's a ground shift and God forbid there's a sharp rock and it pierces the side of the tank. Then what?
I mean, anything can happen. I mean, honestly, if you're buying a house with an oil tank, I mean, you have to do the proper due diligence. If anybody gives you documentation that, oh, I had this thing filled in place, it was inspected by the township, you need to throw those documents out right away. They're meaningless. They don't mean nothing. We pull those all the time, and we find. I just pulled one today. Previously filled 20 years ago, had all the documentation, proper inspections, everything. I'm telling you, I'm going to post photos later on Facebook. I mean, this is a really nasty leaker. I mean, this thing had contamination everywhere. It's holes, riddled with holes. The tank was obviously leaking before they filled it. And that one passed the inspection from the town 20 years ago. Had all the documentation. So as a buyer, if you bought that property, you are 100% responsible now for that cleanup. So you got to be careful with those tanks.
So even if somebody does, so let's back up because this is important. Let's say you're buying a property and the property has an oil tank that's been abandoned.
Yep.
You're saying that you should absolutely test that tank regardless?
100%. You would be foolish if you took the documentation that the town did their inspection, because here's the thing, it wasn't required back then to test the soil. So what they used to do is they would dig down by hand with a shovel, like a 2x2 hole. They would dig down, cut a hole in the top of the tank and clean it out. And then the town would come out with a flashlight and they would look into that hole. That's it. And they would say, oh, it looks clean. Looks like you cleaned it out properly. Go ahead and fill it. But they don't know. That tank was leaking for 20 years. You can't tell unless you pull it, right? Or test it. And it wasn't required. So a lot of those tanks were actually leaking. And, think about it. Why did they fill it with sand? Most of these houses didn't convert to gas. A lot of them put an oil tank in the basement. You think you have an oil tank in the basement, you're good. No, dude, most likely if you have a tank in the basement and one outside that's filled in place, The one outside that was filled in place is filled in place because it stopped working. So they just tossed one in the basement. So, I mean, I just did one for Gabe not that long ago. De Silva, he bought a house in Mountainside, and it had a tank.
Who's Gabe De Silva?
You've heard Gabe. yeah, I did it for Gabe. So anyways, yeah, he was buying it, and I went out there. I'm like, bro, I went out there and actually did the test. I was on site, and I told him, I'm like, guarantee this tank's leaking. He's like, how do you know? I'm like, because you have a basement tank and you have a previously filled tank outside. They don't just fill tanks for no reason. You know what I mean? Like, why would you take a 1,000-gallon tank out of commission and put a 275 in the basement? You do that because the tank outside stopped working. It was taking on water, and it was leaking. It wound up costing the seller about 20 grand.
Dude, that's ridiculous.
Yep.
So you're saying CYA, baby. CYA. Cover your ass.
You have to, man. Do not take the documentation from a seller ever, 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 unless it was tested, soil tested. And even then, there's companies that do these soil tests. They don't guarantee it. So again, you could hire a company for $500 or $600. What they're going to do is they're going to do what's called a yes or no test. It's yes, it's leaking. No, it's not. And there's no guarantee with it. So for example, they're come out there, they do it by hand. They take a sample at 5 feet. Really, they need to be at 7. So that's not an accurate sample. They tell you the soil's clean. You pay them $500, you close, you pull it, you find contamination, you're 100% responsible for it. You have no recourse.
That's the thing. Yeah. So what about the company that comes out there and actually does the inspection?
You can't, you're going to do sue them. You can't sue them. They don't guarantee the results. They can't, they don't put anything in writing. With our company, when I do that test, if I tell you it's clean and you take my guarantee, you got to pay for it. It's optional, but if you take it, you're 100% covered. There's no ceiling on what the cost is or anything.
That's crazy, dude. Well, listen, I'm me personally, I'm learning something today. I've been in the industry for 15 years. I've also been involved in, obviously, renovating houses and stuff like that. So for me, I think that, this is important. All right. So let's see. What's the best way to test an oil tank and protect, I guess, me as a buyer?
So yeah, like what I was talking about, I mean, the soil testing that we offer is absolutely it's the best way to test a tank. It's 100% accurate. And I say that because if you're doing it by hand, I usually tell people that's about a 50% accuracy rate. We do it with a machine. I usually say it's a 90% accuracy rate, but if you take our guarantee, it's 100%. You know what I mean? You're going to be covered no matter what.
By hand. You're not talking about a shovel. You're talking about the pipe that bangs in the ground.
Exactly. They come out with a little auger or something, or they drill a pipe down and they hammer a pipe down to the ground. But a lot of times, dude, they can't get to the proper depth. I mean, I used to do it by hand. I mean, I did them myself personally, and I would get down to 5 feet and hit a rock. And I got to take a sample here, you know what I mean? But you really need to be at 7. So it's not accurate. So that's why I invested in this GeoProbe that I have. It's like 130 grand new, this machine. And I hit a lever and I'm down 30 feet if I want to.
Really?
It's got like 20,000 pounds of down pressure. I mean, I just literally hit a lever and it drills. So like, I know I'm getting to the proper depth. That's why we offer a guarantee with it.
How far down can you actually go with it? You said 30
I mean, I could go to 30 feet typically. I mean, if it's really hard clay, maybe 20 feet, but I don't need to go that deep. On a tank that's still in the ground, I only need to get down to 7 feet. But here's the thing with that machine. If I find contamination, and what I do for that 600 is I actually chase it. So if I find it at 7 feet, well, now I'm going to go to 15 and see if it's clean. If it's not clean, I'm going to go to 18. And I'm going to figure out exactly where that contamination is, how far it traveled in each direction. I'm doing all this for $600. I mean, nobody is giving any type of service like this for 600.
All right, let me ask you a question. Somebody actually asked a question. This is actually a really good question. I have a duplex under contract, was converted to gas, but has 2 above ground tanks sitting on the dirt in the basement. What can be done to make sure there wasn't any prior leaks?
So above ground tanks are pretty simple. I mean, it's visual. You go out there and take a look at it, man. You can see the tank if it's got oil underneath it. It's pretty easy to see if there was a discharge. But because they're above ground in the basement, like I was saying before, I would highly recommend getting a tank search outside. Just because they're in their basement doesn't mean that at one point they weren't outside and you won't see them because they cut the fill, they cut the vent. So definitely recommend doing a tank search outside more, and these above ground tanks do leak. I mean, I'm literally on one right now for an investor in Ewing Township where the tank was above ground. It leaked real bad. I mean, we jacked up half of the concrete floor, and we're digging down about 4 feet by hand in the basement today. I got about 7 guys down there doing hand digging down there today. So, and that's from an above ground tank, but it was very obvious when we went down there. I mean, within seconds, I looked at it and you could tell it was leaking. It was black on the outside. It was black over the floor. I mean, it was nasty,
That's crazy. So actually, the thing that the person should probably do at this point is call 908-510-0000. Not to sound like a commercial.
No, just throw me a text or call me. Yeah, and
I mean, it's a fucking example. Reach out to Teddy direct, talk to him, and at least offer you some type of advice, give you the information that you need to be on the same page, right?
No, absolutely, yeah.
All right, so there's a couple other questions I want to go here. Investor. Well, we already covered this one. How can I buy a property that has soil contamination with 0 risk?
Yeah, so like we spoke about before, I mean, hire us to do that soil investigation. I'm going to give you a fixed price. That's not going to, it's not going to fluctuate. We take all the risk and liability at that point. So if I quote you 10 grand, you buy the property. Like I said before, if it costs me 15, you're still only getting invoiced 10. So we take all the risk and liability off of your shoulders and put it on our shoulders. So, I mean, literally you could buy these properties now. So if you find a deal on MLS that's been sitting forever because it has contamination, hire us to probe it, tell you what it's going to cost, and negotiate those numbers into the deal.
What's scary is that, there's so many different companies out there and you never really know what's going to happen. You never really understand until you really uncover things. So
until you start the job, that's the problem. And most of these jobs, they start out like that. They're open-ended. I mean, I had one that started at 8 grand and it ended at 300,000. I mean, to nobody's fault because they didn't hire us to investigate it, but it started out at 8. And then it was, in 2 days of work, it was already at 40,000. And then we did our probing and figured out, I mean, it winded up at the end of this project. We had to jack up the house, the neighbor's house. I mean, it was like $300,000 cleanup. And that started out at 8 grand. So that's why you can't buy a property with a quote from a company that's telling you, oh, average is 8 to 12. Average doesn't mean shit, man. That's just, they're not going to stick to that. That doesn't mean it's definitely going to be 8 to 12. That means that's where it's going to start. Maybe it'll show, maybe the invoice will end up there, but a lot of times it doesn't. I mean, I could run an invoice to 25 grand in one day by taking out 150 tons of soil. I could do that in 8 hours. I mean, it happens like that. So you start out at 8 and all of a sudden your invoice is 25. And it happens very quickly. So
what do you do in a situation? Because you talked about you give somebody a price, you give somebody a quote or an estimate or whatever it is. Like if they had that insurance where they were paying $59 a month, would that
they're covered? They have a $1,500 deductible and they're covered up to 150 grand. Yep, 100%. But a lot of times, I mean, a lot of my clients don't have the insurance. They come to me and they're selling the property. Let's say it's a seller, and they're like, "Dude, I just need to get this done. I don't care about a fixed price. I just want to start it." So we give them an open-ended contract, and we do those all the time as well. And they start around 8 grand, and they go up from there. And we won't usually know until we get into it. We got to start digging, and we just chase it until it's clean, and then we sample it. And those jobs, a lot of times, they end up, 15, 20, 25,000 in one day.
That's nuts. By the way, for whatever reason, I don't know why they do it, but apparently StreamYard and Facebook, sometimes they don't interact with each other, so it doesn't show the person's name up. But I wanted to make Facebook page. Brian Kellyman. Brian is the person who's actually going to be reaching out to me to see you now.
All right, yeah, cool. Definitely, man.
Okay, so, I mean, as far as like, the no risk aspect of it, no secret, I'm going to be doing the Boot Camp Expo. And we're going to be recording, I don't know, are you coming on the 19th or the 20th of September? I'm not even sure. But
yeah, I forget. I don't remember. I don't think you told me yet. I think we spoke about it, but I don't know if you gave me a time and date.
I'll tell you right now. You are. How are you? Yeah, you're September 19th. You're at 11 a.m. This is good stuff. This is stuff that really needs to be put out there. And these are the things that we can cover. You obviously you can do it yourself, but this is the type of content that you're going to want to put out there for people, so they can reach out to you. And you know what? Look, it's not always about like you or me. It's about the person who's in trouble. So for me, I have people that reach out to me. And look, I'm not the most inexpensive. I'm not the most expensive, but I'm not the most inexpensive.
Yep.
So if somebody's trying to save a couple of bucks, and I could kind of get the tone of voice, like on the telephone, they're asking me questions, and I'm sure you get that a lot as well. I'm not one that's going to say, "Hey, I told you so." So if they have to come back at a later date, and it's something that I can help them and I can fix it, that's cool. If it's something that I can't, different story. You know, when you're sending documents into a bank, it's a little bit different than digging dirt in the ground, but not by much because you're regulated by the state, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, we're licensed by the DP. They do, you know, they do oversight, and we have a licensed subsurface evaluator on staff who's does all the sampling and the reporting. We got to get, you know, all the letters from the state. Yeah, absolutely.
What happens in a situation like you're talking about the property? Guy purchased a property at sheriff's sale, goes in, smart, very smart, does the tank test or does the to find out if there's a tank on the property. You find out that there's more of an issue that's really there. He can't use it as a bargaining chip with the sheriff's sale.
Apparently, I mean, I bought a few houses at the sheriff's sale. I don't have an enormous amount of experience. I think I bought 4 houses there, you know, when I was investing. But yeah, I mean, I think if you could prove to them up to if it's something really significant, I think there's a way that you could get that money back. I think. I mean, as far as that's what he told me, because he wanted me to put a report together, basically summarizing what I found and how bad it was. And he's like, dude, you got to make it seem like, you know, make it look like it is as bad as it is, because it was. I mean, it really was. I told him it was going to be like 150 to 180,000 to do it.
How much was the house? How much was he buying the house for?
Dude, it was under 100 grand. I don't remember, but it was under 100. I mean, it was way more than the house was worth. Right. And I mean, and I was guesstimating on 180 because even though we did our investigation, I chased it all the way out to the street, but I can't go into the street and start probing. I'm not allowed to. I'd have to get permits and street opening permits and bonds. It would be insane. So I told him, I'm like, dude, up to the street is so hot. I'm like, it's definitely probably 10 feet into the street. You're dealing with major utilities. I'm like, this thing could go into 300. I mean, it could get crazy. I'm like, just on your property, you're looking at 180. So there was no way. I mean, he would have been screwed if you bought that house.
Teddy, what happens in a situation like that? Does the bank have to take full responsibility for it?
Oh, the bank never takes. I mean, if you walk away from the house, but even then, dude, the banks don't want to clean it up. Most of these banks, they're like, buy it as is. And that's why when people come to me, they're like, oh, I got this bank-owned property. It's got contamination. They don't even want me to sample it. I'm like, bro, you're crazy if you don't sample it. Like, I'm in the business, and I wouldn't buy a property like that. Like, and dude, I go out there, and we sample it all the time. I don't need the bank's permission. If you're a buyer, call me up, dude. I'll come out and do it. I mean, they're not even going to know we're there. You know what I mean? I'm not like a stickler, like, oh, if I don't have the access agreement from the bank, you know, you have to do due diligence, man. You'd be crazy not to.
Are you legally allowed to do that? To go into
No, I mean, a lot of times you do, but listen, how many times do guys break in houses to look at them before they buy them? I mean, come on, like, you got to do what you got to do. You know what I mean?
Listen, don't even get me started about that because, you know, we just started, and I don't normally talk about this, but we just started doing and getting involved in note sales.
Okay.
And brokering, you know, with different investors. And I told this individual, please do not go into the property. You have no right to go into the property. I actually signed a legal document saying I'm not going into the property. You can't get the property. Well, guess what happens? 5 hours later, I get a phone call. Bro, I got arrested.
Oh, shit.
I got arrested. Yeah. I said, for walking on the property? And he's like, I'm like, dude, you didn't. He goes, nah, I did.
Yeah.
So, you know,
we don't have to get inside. That's the thing. Like, if you call me with a deal and you're like, bro, I got a tank outside, it's in the front, I need to know if it's leaking right away. I mean, I could come out there. I mean, I'm outside. I'm not breaking into the house. Yeah, I'm on the property, but you know, I've never gotten in trouble for it. I've been doing this forever, and I'm doing it for the buyer. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to protect these people because how can you buy a house sight unseen with a tank, knowing there's a tank? A lot of times they know it's leaking, and the bank's like, no, you can't do any investigation. I'm like, bro, walk away from the deal or have me do it, whatever you want to do, you know?
Let me ask you a question. What do you think about the pressure tests? Accurate?
Horrible. Worst thing you could spend your money on, bro. You might as well take that 500 and stuff in the toilet and flush it.
Why?
Why? Because, all right, I've been doing this for 20 years, and you know how many times I went out there and I had a buyer having that test done. They said it was clean. They have the report, and they hire me after they close. So now they close, they hire me. I'm out there digging out the tank. All of a sudden, I pull it, and it's fucking Swiss cheese. They're swinging the report around like, oh, look, no, it was. I'm like, bro, burn it. It doesn't mean anything. Look at you. Look what you have here. You have corrosion holes everywhere. There's oil in the ground, pure product. Like I've seen that happen, and I also see it go the other way. I've seen it where people had that test done and it said it failed, so now they're freaking out. They're calling my office. Oh my God, it's going to cost me a fortune. I'm like, no, 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 no. It's not going to cost you a fortune. Let's pull the tank and see what we got. You don't know, and we pull it, and it's fine. And that's happened so many times throughout my career to the point where I'm like, all right, this is just a scam. This test, it really is. And the reason you know that is because you should ask the company that sells it. Say, hey, yeah, you're gonna do this tank tightness test or whatever. I want you to back it up with 100% guarantee. There's not a company in the state of New Jersey that'll do it. That alone should.
So now, all right. So listen. So now they do a pressure test. Now they do the pressure test or Titan test or whatever you want to call it, the virgin test. They all fail, by the way. As far as the pressure test is concerned, they actually have to clear. They gotta close off the vent, right, for the tanks.
Yep.
And then, even if everything is rock solid and they do the test, is it possible? Is it possible that maybe a fitting might be loose?
Absolutely, 100%. Or you could have a crack in the vent pipe. So what? You got a crack in the vent pipe. Doesn't mean the tank's bad. And that's the problem. They fail it for all that shit all the time. And people freak. You lose the deal. I mean, it's just stupid. It's not accurate, and nobody guarantees it. So why even spend your money on it? That's my opinion.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, because there are a lot of people that swear by the pressure tests when they're doing it.
Yeah, but if it doesn't come with a guarantee as a buyer, why would you take that risk, dude? Like you're gonna get a report saying your tank is good. Buy the as soon as you sign that dotted line, bro, and you buy that house, it's 100% your responsibility according to the DEP. Doesn't matter who tested it before. Doesn't matter who owned it before. None of that shit matters, bro. You own it. It's your contamination now. That's how it works.
All right. Well, let's get it. Well, let me ask you this question. You ever watch the movie Tommy Boy? When the guy's like, with a guarantee, but that I need a guarantee in the box. Like, okay, you want me to put a guarantee in the box and guarantee? Basically, I'm guaranteeing you, fucking piece of shit. I could do that if you want. So I understand all that. Let's talk about financing, Teddy, because you blew my fucking mind when you told me the type of financing options that are available. Let's talk financing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a few things that we do that are unique. It depends on the deal. So if you got a seller who has some equity in the deal, we'll come in there, because here's the problem. If you want to buy a house that has a leaking tank, you're in love with it, you found it, you're under contract, and now you find out it's leaking. Well, you can't close on that house unless you get what's called the no further action letter, if you're getting a conventional mortgage. So if you're getting a conventional mortgage, the mortgage company's going to want what's called the no further action letter. That's your clean bill of health. Well, if the seller doesn't have the money to do the cleanup, you know what I mean? You're not going to lay out the money. You don't even own the house, right? So we'll come in. I'll do the whole cleanup for free. No money out of pocket. The seller doesn't have to pay me. You don't have to pay me. And I get paid at closing. As long as I get a letter from the attorney. And we do that all the time, as long as there's equity in the deal. Obviously, if it's a short sale, there's no equity. I mean, there's only so much I can do. I mean,
what do you do? Do you put like a mechanic's lien on the property?
We don't. What we do is we typically get a letter from both attorneys, the buyer and the seller, or an email, and then we make the client sign a special contract that's separate from the actual contract, the cleanup contract, that says that they're going to pay interest. I mean, we do charge interest. So if we do the job today and it doesn't close for 60 days, you're going to have 60 days worth of interest. But I mean, we have to charge carrying costs. I mean, it's like anything else, right? We're banking the whole deal.
So you're not just the guy who plays in the dirt with a fucking Tonka truck. You know what you're talking about. You're a businessman.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, I mean, we've been doing this for a long time, man. I mean, and we do the deal because we want the deal to go through. A lot of times these deals will die if we don't do it. So, and listen, is a buyer's, in today's market when there's all these buyers, bro, like I don't mind doing it. If it was a market where there's no buyers, then I'm hesitant to do it, because if the deal falls apart, now I'm waiting months to find a buyer. Today, buyers are coming out of the woodworks. You know what I mean? So it's easy to offer that. So we don't offer it all the time, but right now in today's market, we're doing it all the time.
Let's fast forward. Let's talk about a person who has a property. They lived in the house for 10 years. They're falling behind on their mortgage, but now they're petrified because they know they have an oil tank on the property. They have Teddy and company come out. You guys look at the property. You do whatever it is that you do. And now you guarantee, and you give them the $59 a month policy.
Yep.
Do you ever actually do a search to find out if somebody's in foreclosure, or do you actually go on their word as far as them saying whatever they're saying? Or do you not even care?
Because, for that type of coverage, we charge $600 for that initial investigation. If I prove that the soil is clean, it's
Yeah.
$59 a month. I mean, if you decide that you don't want to, you just stop paying it at some point, well, then you don't have the coverage, obviously. Yeah, so I don't care. I mean, I don't check their credit or anything like that. I mean, we do have certain customers. For example, I have one customer now in Jersey City. She's not selling the property, so which is unique. Most of my clients, 90% of them are selling. So she's not selling, and she wants to take care of this tank, which is already known to be leaking. So we gave her a flat rate. We told her it was going to be about $15,000 fixed price, but she doesn't have the money. So we're going to finance her over a 5-year period. It's costing her, I don't even know, it's under $100 a month or something. It's some, low amount of money, but, so we're financing her.
How much money down?
We asked her to put down 20% or 30% or something like that. So we do ask for some money on that type of deal. If you're not selling the property, we do try to get something down. Because we have to get cover our costs a little bit, especially if you're financing it over a 5-year period. But those are very.
I want to ask a question: is there equity in that house?
There is equity in the house. Yeah, she doesn't have. That's the other thing. We do ask questions like that. We do check their credit. For something like that, I'll check their credit. Things like, but that's very rare. We don't do a lot of those. We actually have an outside company that we work with. That we could. It's a third-party company that will finance it. It's like any type of work you do at your house. There's companies that will finance the windows, the roof, that type of stuff.
Do you put a lien against the property?
On that deal that we're doing with this other client, not typically, because we hold back all the documentation. So that's kind of our leverage. So like, I won't give her the NFA letter. So we'll do all the work up into the report, but I don't submit the report to the state until that's paid off. So that's my leverage. She can't sell her property because she has an open case number. You know what I mean? So I know I'm going to get paid. Okay.
All right. Well, hopefully. Listen, you never know. I've heard of obviously people getting beat left and right on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely happens. I mean, we've been knocking wood, we've been pretty lucky, man. We haven't gotten beat from any customers. Like I said, I had this deal in Union right now. It's $35,000 that fell through the buyer, but I know she's going to get another buyer, so I'm going to carry it for another 60 to 90 days.
She has equity in the house.
She has equity, yeah, a lot of equity in the house, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
let me ask you another question that I know nobody else is going to think of. You have everything in place. $600 up front. They know they have to pay a $1,500 deductible. 3 months goes in. They're paying $59 a month. Guy loses his job. Wife freaks out. Got to sell the house. Got to move out of the area. Got to move in with the in-laws, whatever. So, how is there any type of give you accidental insurance? It's like a 2-year waiting time or whatever. They have to have it. Is there any waiting time if, God forbid, something happens and they have to utilize it?
No. The only stipulation with our program is in the first 12 months if there's a claim. Only if there's a claim. So let's just say this happens in the first 3 months and we pull the tank and there's a claim. Instead of $1,500 deductible, it's $3,500 in the first 12 months. But that goes away after 12 months. And if there's no claim, there's no deductible. So that's how it works.
So if somebody wants to pull the tank and they pull it out, you're good. That's it. They pay $1,500 and that's the end of it.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Hey, listen, that's a no-brainer. So you're basically banking on these tanks to not have an issue with it.
Well, no, here's the thing. So this is where it becomes really, really interesting because the other company that provides the same service through the fuel dealers, they claim on their website that they have 66,000 clients that they sell this program to over 18 states, and they're about $700 a month. So it's they're pretty big company. But how they work is they subcontract to a company like myself that comes out and they do those hand borings we talked about early on. Not accurate, right? So they're subbing out to a company who's not doing an accurate test, and then they charge the client a yearly fee and they never go back and test it. Dude, all these tanks are going to leak. Whether it's today or 5 years or 10 years, they're all going to leak. They're steel tanks. They're all going to leak eventually. So this company is getting hammered with claims. And then the other thing is what they do is when there is a claim, they have to subcontract to a company like myself, where that company they want to make more money. So they're going to drive up that cleanup cost, right? So they're representing an insurance company. It's just horrible what's happening. So with us, we do our own testing in-house with our geoprobes. We know it's accurate. And for $59 a month, every 2 years, I'm coming back out. It's included in that cost. I'm going to retest your tank. So worst case scenario, I'm going to find a leak. It's going to be 2 years old. It'll be very minimal. And then we're going to cover it, obviously. So that's how our program works.
That's pretty amazing shit. All right. Well, let's talk about this. Guys, my guest today is Teddy Slack from Simple Tanks. And if you want to reach out to him directly, his number is 908-510-0000. Again, his number is 510-0000. You are licensed in New Jersey only?
Yeah, man. We only do Jersey right now. We cover all of Central, pretty much Monmouth to Sussex County.
Okay, so basically you're all over New Jersey if somebody wants to reach out to you.
Absolutely. I mean, we'll go anywhere. Like if you have a leaking tank in Atlantic City, I'll go down there for a leaking tank, but I'm not going to go there for $1,500 tank pull.
I already know where this is headed. You're gonna go hit the fucking roll out.
Hey, listen.
You gotta do what you gotta do. What is, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, but what is the worst leaking oil tank you've seen in your whole career?
So for me personally, that I've done in my business, I believe it was that $300 and something thousand project that we did. But I was involved with another company. Like I said, I grew up working for my family business. The highest one I was involved with, not my personal business, was almost 600 and something thousand. So it was like double that. And that was a residential site. Now the insurance company was paying for like 60% of that because they had their insurance for a long time. Their homeowners insurance now, but that's not typical. It's not typically how it works.
Why would homeowners not have, if they have an oil tank, why would they not want to get or ask their homeowners insurance policy if they could get it?
So, well, here's the thing. 10 years ago, they stopped writing that policy. It was,
really?
Yeah, they because these insurance companies were getting slammed, dude. They were getting slammed with all these cleanups, and they're expensive, 100,000, 200,000. So they stopped writing that policy. So if you just bought the house in the last 10 years, you're not going to have that coverage. If you've lived there for 20 years, 15, 20, 30 years, at some point you had that coverage in your policy. We work with adjusters that will come in and help you read that policy. Will help you try to get that coverage, but you have to own that house for at least 10 years minimum to get that coverage. And a lot of times it's only a certain percentage, but there is a grant through the state. So if you don't have that coverage and it's your primary residence, it can't be an investment property. So if it's your primary residence and you're not sitting on like $1 million in cash, you're pretty much eligible for a grant, and the DEP will reimburse you about 90% of the money.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And you don't have to pay it back.
It's a rebate. So it doesn't, like, you won't get the money up front, and it does take about 4 years to get the money because the program's out of cash. It's the state of New Jersey.
Yeah,
but 4 years from now, you'll get a nice check in the mail,
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. Now, my clients, they definitely call me. They're like, dude, I just got this check, and it's like 3 years down the road. I'm like, oh, shit, nice. It's a nice bonus.
But you don't get any of that money.
No, because I get paid up front. I tell them. I mean, the program used to pay within 6 to 8 months. At that time, this is about 5, 6, 7 years ago, you can do the work as a contractor and then wait to get that money. Now, I mean, I can't wait 4 years. You know what I mean? Like, how many jobs would I be able to do? I'd be broke. You know what I mean? So I tell the clients, you got to lay the money out and then you get reimbursed. It's a rebate.
Gotcha. Understood. Well, listen, my guest today is this handsome gentleman, Teddy Slack. He's a trendsetter. He's offering insurance I've never heard of in my whole life, and he's helping people. It sounds like on a daily basis. How many days a week you have the crews out there working?
Dude, we're slammed right now. I have 130 active files right now I'm working on that. I have 66 projects that have to get scheduled right at this time. So we pull about anywhere between 3 to 5 tanks a day. We do usually 1 cleanup a day. We have 3 to 4 crews every single day doing this work, man. I mean, I'm out training new guys. I'm out in the field a lot. I'm in the office. I'm all over the place. But it's bananas right now at the market, dude. It's crazy.
That's great. Let me ask you a question. Why did you want to align yourself with my Shortstop Bootcamp Expo?
Well, obviously you have an awesome network, man. You have a great reputation online as well, and you're connected with a ton of people. A lot of the people that I currently work with, I do a lot of investor work, like I was telling you. So it's great to be part of this network for sure.
I appreciate that. That means a lot. So the Shortstop Bootcamp obviously is going to go live October 17th. I'm excited to get you in the studio in September. Actually, do some of the taping for the event, so that's going to be pretty cool. Guys, my guest today is Teddy Slack from Simple Tanks. If you have any questions, concerns, you can reach out to him directly. I mean, I got his phone number up there. And I have to tell you, you absolutely everything that anybody's ever said to me about you is 100% true. You seem like a very humble guy. You want to help individuals, and you definitely think outside the box, which is really great. I appreciate you, taking time during the day and jumping on here. Is there anything you want to add personally about yourself or about your company that maybe people don't know about?
I mean, not really, man. I mean, I think, you know, a lot of my stuff I put out there, dude. Like I said, I mean, I'm on all over, you know, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. I mean, I try to put everything out there. I just want to get the message out about the services we offer. Cause like, there's nobody that's offering these services. So it's super, super unique. It's really the only way, in my opinion, that you could buy a house with underground tank. Otherwise you're taking a major risk. So yeah, just text me that number anytime of the day. Just throw me a text. I might not get back to you right away, but I'll definitely respond at some point.
Guys, this is Matt Marinoff, Real Estate Recovery Group. We're doing these lives 12 o'clock, and we're now doing them on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We are extremely busy, and during the pandemic, I was doing them 5 days a week, and I was also doing a night show once or twice a week, but it's out of hand now. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. My guest today is Teddy Slack from Simple Tanks. You can reach him directly at 908-510-0000, 908-510-0000. Any chance in your will I can get that phone number? Because that's a sick phone number, dude.
Dude, it's crazy, right? It's
How do
easy.
you have the number?
It's funny. Everybody asks me that. They think it's a fake number. I'm like, I write down documents. People are like, dude, you got to give me a real number. I'm like, nah, it really is. So try it, you know. But yeah, no, I asked Verizon, dude. I was calling. I had like 10 lines at one point for my company. I'm like, dude, give me a good number. I need a good number. And the guy's like, how about this one? I was like, really? I'm like, yeah, I'll take that. That's good. That works.
Yeah, no doubt. I actually have a phone number. I'm not going to give the first 3 digits, but the last 4 is 4,000.
Nice.
And every now and then I'll get some guys like, dude, let me just, because it's my private number. I never use the business number. They're like, dude, how much you want for it? I'm like, get out of here. I had a guy offer me $1,000.
No shit.
Yeah, for the vanity number. That's what they call it. These are called vanity phone numbers. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah, well, this number is literally, it's not even a vanity number. It's a Verizon wireless cell phone number that I got from Verizon Wireless.
No, I'm saying they actually call it a vanity. That's what they call it.
Okay, yeah.
Vanity number, whatever. But that doesn't matter. In any event, I really appreciate you coming on. At the end of every one of my shows, I ask people if they can emulate my finger point. Let's see if you can do
it. There you go.
All right, so you're different because you're like, listen, man, I'm going to give you 7.5 for that. I'm going to tell you something about it.
Nice.
Teddy, hold on one sec. I'm going to disconnect with the live, but I really appreciate you coming on. Guys.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me, bro. It was awesome.
Absolutely. Hold on one sec.